Kinfolk, welcome to another episode of the Black Owned Podcast. I am your host, the main man with the game plan, Janice's oldest boy, Sincere, is definitely in the building. Um, Please, as you come in, if you're coming in via Facebook, hit that like button. Also, share us to your own page, if you will. That's going to help us grow our following. If you're coming to us from YouTube, again, hit that thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. If you are, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you'll be notified every time that we go live. Also, if you are a black business owner, if you are a business owner, an author, a painter, a speaker, or anyone who can provide any information or as inspiration, we definitely love to have you on the show. You can get in contact with us via email at the number one blackownedpodcast@gmail.com. That is the number one at blackownedpodcast@gmail.com. If you're interested in being a sponsor, you can also reach out to us via that email address and we can talk the particulars there. So we are looking for some sponsors as we look to do bigger and better things. Before we get started today, I want to shout out a few ladies. Black women are doing their thing as usual. If you didn't know, Asia Wilson of the WNBA, just tied the points in a game this last week. She scored 53 points in a game. What up, Dave? She scored 53 points in a game. So big shout out to Asia Wilson balling out there in Vegas. Also, I don't know if I don't believe I did mention last week Simone Biles made her comeback, and she was doing Simone Biles-ish type of things as she dominated the field on the way to her another win in the belt for her. So shout out to Simone Biles, and of course, you know we were going to mention Dallas's own Sha'Carri Richardson, as she had a very good showing in Budapest at the World Championship. She's won the gold medal in the 100 meters. She won the bronze in the 200 and another gold in the 4x100 women's relay team. So big shout out to Sha'Carri Richardson. It's good to see that you can make a comeback like that. A lot of other things going on in the in pop culture, but we're gonna skip over a lot of that and get right into, excuse me, get right into some other things. So, as we usually do about this time, breaking news. Summit, the BRIC Summit. If you don't know, BRIC stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They held their summit this past week between August 26th and 22nd and the 25th. And what was on the table was the trade currency and about how that will work. Now, not the official currency, if you will, of BRICS. That is something that was not discussed. So what's happening with BRICS, so that you know, and I've been very infatuated with it. So I did do some reading up on it, and what it is that they are going into an agreement to trade amongst themselves using their own currency. So the currencies of their countries, they're going to use as trade currency vice the US dollar, which has been the standard up until this point. China definitely looks to benefit greatly from this, as all BRICS members so far, all the countries of the BRICS have China as their main trading partner, as well as they trade a little bit amongst themselves outside of China. But every BRICS company does trade with China. And how it's supposed to work is that instead of using the world trade currency, which is right now the U.S. dollar. They're going to trade amongst themselves using their own currencies. But the currency has to be backed by a commodity. It has to be backed by a commodity. So already some countries are going to be a little more richer than others based on the type of commodity each individual country has, because that's what they're going to have to use in order to kind of weight their own dollar. So usually they would have to take their dollar, um, balance it against how many of their dollars it takes to get to one U.S. dollar, and then all of that money is what they would have to use to trade. But being able to trade at their dollar's value using commodities from their countries makes it a little bit easier for them. It gives them a lot more options as far as trading is concerned, and that's what they've all been looking for is options as far as trading. So of course the big push is to eventually de-dollarize, you if you will, um, the trade amongst all nations. But at that currency, they also added another 5 countries to the BRICS who will become official members as of January 1, 2024. Excuse me. And those countries are Argentina, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and I can't put my finger on what the 5th country was as of right now, but 5 countries will be added into the BRICS membership as of 1 January 2024. In other news, late news, if you know me, I'm from Duval County, aka Jacksonville, Florida, and we just had a mass shooting down there by another white domestic terrorist, and this happened on August 26th. 3 people were fatally shot by this gunman who walked into a Dollar General store and just began shooting. He was he targeted, black shoppers. His name is Ryan Christopher Palmetter. He's been identified as the gunman and described as a white adult male in his 20s. Um, Here's the thing about this whole situation, as I see it. um, America it's a great place, but it's an ugly place, and we try to sweep that unattractive ugliness under the rug a lot of times, and instead of addressing that, we would choose to ignore it. Um, white males are definitely the white male domestic terrorists are the biggest threat to American culture than anything else or anyone else in the United States. However, it is not something that a government has to worry about, because when we look at it from the macro level, um, that government entity and that system of government is what has created most of these white male domestic terrorists. When you have people like Trump, when you have people like Ron DeSantis down in Florida, um, and the rhetoric that they are rightfully allowed to speak, uh, but speaking it from large platforms that are governmental, then you give permission, if you will, to those who are of the lower ranks to go and act out according to the words being spewed from higher government officials. Um, when you're in a city that is governed by a white male who also speaks, ridiculously and a lot of times in dog whistles, uh, those people that he's speaking to know that he's speaking to them, uh, and then they act accordingly because they don't see any fear, reprisal, or repercussion that might befall them. And a lot of times they believe that there may not just be recognition, but even sometimes reward. If you remember the gentleman who came across 2 states and killed a man, I cannot remember his name for the life of me right now. When they put up a GoFundMe for him, within hours, he was already at the 6-figure mark. This definitely portrays to these people who would perpetrate these type of acts that there is no real repercussion for the way that they act. So as I look at this situation down in my hometown, um, I'm not necessarily looking or paying attention to the individual, but to those things and those people that allow these type of individuals to be in the first place. I heard on the news that he went to an HBCU and was turned away by a security guard. I did hear that he initially he was trying to go to Kyle Rittenhouse. That's who it was. Appreciate you, Dane. I did hear that Edward Waters College was his first target, but he was rebuffed by the security guard. So shout out to that gentleman, because that could have been a lot worse, and as well involved a lot of younger people. So yeah, shout out to that security guard. Kyle Rittenhouse is who I was talking about, who came 2 states over, killed a man and got that 6 figures, raised up for him and GoFundMe within a few hours. Appreciate your name on that. But yeah, that's all I have today for the breaking news. So you already know what we're about to get into.
What up? What up? What up?
What is up?
What's going on?
Okay,
How you feeling?
Building. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Happy Sunday, everybody. What's going on? I
It's
hope
good to see
everybody's
you.
feeling all right. You too. You
You
too.
glowing today. Maybe
Hey.
it's the purple. You look at royal.
Hey, is that what it is? I'll take that. I'll take that. Look, I went shopping today and I bought about 30 pieces of clothes for under $100. So that might be why you're good glowing.
Okay, it might be. You can never be mad at that. You know what I'm saying?
But yes, girl,
Talk to us. What you got for us
what's
today?
going on, y'all? It is your girl, Coach K Woods. And, I'm not going to be long today because I am super excited about what's going to be talked about today on the show. So let me just say this. I talk about things based off of conversations that I have, whether with clients, what I see on social media, and stuff like that. And today I want to talk about unconditional support. We hear that a lot. I see people talk about it a lot, like, oh, your friend is going to be there for you no matter what. Let me tell you guys something, okay? Do I feel like that there should be unconditional support? Yes, with boundaries, okay? Because what a lot of times people don't understand is when you are consistently and constantly going to somebody to be supported, right? You are steady feeding that energy to them. Okay. Now that you vented and now that you've got that off your chest, you now have instilled that into your friend. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give an example and I'll do this. When it comes to like a relationship, right? You have to realize that you are venting to them. They're not going to like him anymore. It could be a domestic violence situation, and you've gone back to them after you've been to them, and now they don't like them, but then you want to get mad at them because they like, well, what you doing? What you vented all that negative bad energy to them. They can't flip that switch off and on. So if your friend is coming to you and saying, hey friend, I love you, but I cannot keep listening to you repetitively talk about the same thing without action, you cannot be mad at your friend for that. Okay. Mm-hmm. There has to be some type of boundaries that we've got to instill in that, because you can't keep throwing all of that bad trash energy onto them. You're fine now, but now they're taking all of that. We all react to things differently. We all handle things differently. So before that reason, you want to be mindful of what you're steady saying to your friends, your family, whoever it may be. You've got to be mindful with so much venting, because now they don't want to come around them. They don't want to come around you. If this relationship, they don't want to come around them now. So they're like, oh, I'm not going over there. Why not? Because I don't want to go over there, So you've got to be mindful. And when you're wanting unconditional support, you can't just keep throwing things on people and expecting them to still be able to be at their best when it comes to you. That takes a toll on them as well.
Hmm.
That takes a toll on their mental well-being as well. And you've just got to be a little more mindful of that.
Right.
Be mindful of the situation as a whole. Think about before you want to vent, and say, okay, how many times have I had this conversation with her? How or him? How many times have I done this? Okay, maybe I need to talk about a little thing, something different this time, because that is tearing at their own mental well being. You can't keep throwing that energy on them and expecting them to be at their fullest capacity with you. They've got to protect their mental well being as well. So, for those that want that unconditional support, it's going to come with some boundaries. It should come from boundaries with you as well as that other person. So just be mindful of that. You can still be a dope, amazing friend, family, sister, cousin, whatever, and still be mindful and still set boundaries. So just be mindful with that unconditional support, because sometimes that unconditional support can cost you some lost brain cells
Hmm.
because you are stressed out because you are worrying about somebody else. So
You
just be a
mentioned
little
you
mindful of
mentioned you mentioned something about the person actually kind of pausing themselves, if you will, to say, hey, how often have I spoke with this person
that.
about
Hmm.
it? Am I being a bother? I think that's if you can get that level of introspection,
Hmm.
then
There's a
you
growth
you
journey for you.
you yeah, if you can reach that level of introspection, then that's probably not something that needs to be vented about.
Yeah, that
Secondly, I
part.
don't think there's a such thing as unconditional support.
I personally don't either, but I've seen it a lot, the word a lot, because there should be boundaries with any and everything when it comes to us. We should have boundaries with everybody across the board. Do the boundaries vary from person to person? Absolutely.
Right,
But I've learned unconditional support almost, took me out back in 2020. I'm just going to be real.
right.
Because I didn't have anything for myself. I was empty. When it was time for me to pour into me, I had nothing because I was too busy giving it to everybody else.
Hmm.
So because now I have become self-aware of that, and I have put policies in place to overcome that.
Yeah.
I'm now able to come back from a more mentally healthy space and be like, yes, I'm there for you. I can be that support. But baby, what you're not going to keep doing is talking to me about something when you clearly have the control to make the changes necessary to stop talking about it.
Here's a scenario. You're depleted already.
Yep.
Okay, so you're already depleted. Um, and the phone rings, and it's one of your close girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
You pick the phone up, and all you hear is just a bunch of ruckus, chaos on the other end. Before anybody utters a word, you are already defeated
Yep. Come
because
on.
you don't have anything to give. You are already,
Yep.
oh my god, this
Yeah,
definitely isn't the time, right?
absolutely.
So now your girl is she's talking through spit and snot bubbles, trying to tell you what it is that she's dealing with right now, or so forth and so on, and you kindly say, girl, look, I don't I don't
Mm-mm.
mean to be, I'm not being mean, but I cannot deal with it right now.
That's a boundary.
Right? that
That's a
does not
boundary.
that's not going to go over well.
Mm-mm. Oh, it's
That's
not.
not you know why? Because the,
Oh
the person on the
no.
other end of the phone right now, they are in selfish mode.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a mode that says, I am hurting, I reached out to you and you turned me away.
Yep. Yep.
Right? So I mean, it sounds boy, hey, Damon, that's the word. That is definitely the
It
word.
is. And that's
That
the
is the word.
that's where mindfulness has to come in. You've got to be mindful of what you're doing. You've got to be mindful of, you got to be self-aware. And that's a journey that we all have to take. Everybody has work that we need to do for ourselves. I'm
Mhm.
really over people saying, that's just how I am. That's just how it's gonna be. I don't surround myself around those type of people anymore. If we can't have a growth minded conversation and there's action coming from that, that's not my tribe. That's not my crowd. I'm just over it. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
I don't want to have for people to be codependent on me. I allowed that for years.
Right.
and I'm no longer that person. But because I'm no longer that person and I've set those boundaries, I'm able to help those that truly want to be helped. I'm able
Mm-hmm.
to, help people set goals for themselves. I'm able to help people acknowledge, the things that they want to work on their growth journey, and be able to say, okay, well, we're going to make it happen, and be able to decipher the difference between helping and being codependent on. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a matter of just being more self-aware of you, so you can be more diligent in setting those boundaries. Because, like Sincere said, I don't believe in unconditional support anymore. We can be supportive to people and still don't even speak to them no more. But that's a conversation we're gonna talk about another day. So, it's just a matter of just being mindful of you. We are in our self-care era, we're in our self-love era, we're in our self-everything era. You are your number one priority. Please, please practice daily to make sure that you are the more empowering version of yourself, because everybody has a growth journey that they need to be on. And you got to figure yours out. I'm here for any woman that is ready to, have those uncomfortable conversations, to be supported, unconditionally, not so much, but raw and uncut. I'm going to give you that feedback. Sincere lost his signal, but he'll be back. But I'm going to tell you this, I will definitely be that support system, but I'm going to be that accountable support system. I'm going to be that one that's going to hold you accountable. Damon, I see your comment. You say it's worse when the helper is codependent. Some people can't function without being needed. Ooh, you said a mouthful with that, Damon. You definitely said a mouthful with that, and it's facts. It's facts. The victim mindset, that's things that we're leaving behind, on every level. You know what I'm saying? The codependency, we're leaving that behind. I'm not a strong, independent woman. I'm a woman of
Mm-hmm.
strength who has overcome a lot of things and have become a lifelong learner because of it. And
Yeah.
that's, what I help other women to become. I'm helping women step into their unapologetic, empowering era. Because being unapologetic means that you're gonna set that boundary, and that's where it's gonna stay. You're not gonna keep having to explain why you set that boundary. So we're gonna get to that level. And like I said, anybody want to reach out, don't hesitate. You can go to my website. You can reach out on Instagram, Facebook, the website, the podcast, Empowering Real Talk podcast. Definitely subscribe to that on YouTube as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and quit talking since my boy came back. We lost him for a second, but it's all good.
My bad. I mess around and kick the power cord.
uh-uh.
That's so
It's
childish.
all good. I got you.
So childish. Um, but anyway, so we're gonna move on to the to our first, well, to our only host today, who's gonna be speaking with us about the topic, which is black men's mental health, and where we are as first as far as that is concerned. A very accomplished individual. I'm glad to say that he's a friend of mine. He's a 5-time best-selling author,
Come on.
as well as I think a doctor in theology, as well as a doctor in mental counseling.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
it's a busy young man. Y'all help me welcome to the show, Dr. Cornelius Jones. Hey, Dr. Jones, how you doing?
Hey, good evening or afternoon, depending on where you're at in the country.
Yeah. Good to have you on, man. Good to have you on. I gotta say, this one's been getting a lot of a lot of feedback. So we looking forward to having this conversation with you. But before we do that, if you don't mind, just give us kind of a brief synopsis of yourself and your qualifications.
So I actually have a doctorate in counseling psychology, not mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor in counseling psychology, doctor in ministry, master's degree in human services, master's degree in psychology, master's degree in human relations, master's degree in Christian counseling. So as you can tell, there's a lot of education.
A lot of reading. A lot of reading.
That's what I'm talking about.
I've conducted research on the mental and emotional cost of incarceration. which was published in 2021. I have research being published now on a non-psychotropic approach to reduce the symptoms of PTSD. I am an administrator at the Oregon State Psychiatric Hospital. So, and everything else that I've done to this point probably doesn't have anything to do with the mental health piece of it. And I've written a ton of books in the field. 7 of those books are being used at universities to teach undergraduate and graduate.
Nice.
My man.
So I did a little something.
My man locked himself in the locked himself up. What didn't get on social media or nothing. How long was that, bro? You did it for like 30 days and wrote 2 books.
Yeah, man. Well, no. So January of 2021, New Year's Eve, I locked myself into my office, and I wrote a book in one day.
Mm-hmm.
And that book became my first #1 new release. So in 24 hours, I wrote a book, but it was filled with quotes.
Right.
So just quotes about life and everything. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I got that one.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Weird.
Oh man, this guy here, he's a special guy, man. He's a special guy. All right, man. Let's get right into the topic of the evening, man. Black men's mental health. Mental health, period, has become a hot button issue, a hot topic in the community. We've dealt with it from a lot of different areas, but the one area where it's kind of been least discussed, probably because of the demographic, is Black men.
Correct.
There's still some type of stigma there. I did do some research to see that 20% of Black men between the ages of 18 and 44 are dealing with some type of psychological disorder. But they are almost 30% less to get the treatment that they need. And a lot of those things, again, come from several different, ways, whether it be, people, boy, you crazy? This boy crazy? He had to go see somebody? You know how that goes, anything like that. But when it comes to the stigma of seeking counseling, how important is it for us to get past that?
It's of great importance. I don't think we can afford to wait any longer to normalize going to sit down and talk to somebody when we feel the need. As you know, back in 2019, 2020, throughout the state of Jacksonville, I got a team of Black clinicians together, and we were hosting community workshops on the importance of speaking up and going to say help. Unfortunately, with men, Black men, that's still something that's cliche there, because it's not normalized. But hey, I'm not feeling well, or I need to talk to someone, right? Especially when we live in a society that if you dare to show those emotions, now you're viewed as weak, not with Black men, but also with Black women. So that's a conversation that we can't avoid having, because so many, we just, suppress our feelings and emotions. And that's often tell people, anything that you don't address, you suppress. And then that's going to spill over. So you have to sit down and just vent and get it out, even if you're not looking for the answers, but just having the opportunity to have some measure of expressing yourself is of great importance.
I know there's a quote that I got from you a long time ago. It says that anything that's not growing is dying.
Can you talk a little bit more, because I think a lot of times people, when they hear mental health, they're automatically assuming that we're talking about people that have, lost their rockers and, that they're crazy, and they picture us in a straitjacket, especially in Black culture. So can you kind of elaborate a little bit more, the difference between mental health versus mental illness? Because there's definitely a difference between the two.
So from a clinical standpoint, take the DSM-5, for example. There are 297 different diagnoses that qualify for mental health, right? So that means any room that I go in, no matter who's in that room, I can pick stuff and say somebody meets criteria for. That's just how broad it is. But when you're talking about mental health, you're talking about psychosis, typically where individual is demonstrating certain behavior patterns.
Right.
So the mental health that we, bipolar, schizophrenic, the mood,
Right.
those things. But the challenge becomes if you need to just go and vent.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark, we've had this conversation in the past because of big pharma and
Right.
parents. A mental health diagnosis may be given to somebody who's just having a bad day. And that's what we have to do a better job at educating the community on.
Absolutely.
You have insurance, that's great. But in order for that to be billable to that provider, some type of ICD code has to be rendered. And the ICD code, just for
Yeah.
situation awareness, that's connected to the billable.
Billy. Yep.
So it's like, did you know just for marriage counseling that you were being given an adjustment disorder? Well, what's an adjustment disorder?
Mm-hmm.
One of those typical things that they just throw out there. And that goes into the part of it where you have overdiagnosis and underdiagnosis, especially when it comes to, Black men and especially Black boys. So we have to be very aware of that. And Dr. Umar, he's talked about, ADHD for a great number of years, and there's
Right.
reason to it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, Mark, that you had or not you per se, but someone had a alcohol dependency, right? So that criteria that you're looking for diagnosis purposes, you would say let's say A through F. But when it comes to ADHD, it's intentional that it goes from A through I, which now you have a wider range to say that this child or this individuals meet that criteria for.
Mm-hmm.
Again, those things are by design.
Mm-hmm.
Because if most diagnosis criteria is only A through D, A through F, and then you have this one that goes all the way A through I, then that means all of us can be diagnosed with ADHD.
Right.
So, but I mean, there has to be an admission that when it comes to the Black male, that our situation is unique as far as traumas are concerned. Uh, what are some of the things that may be particular qualifiers or disqualifiers for those who should seek mental counseling?
Well, I think let's take the word mental out, right,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and like counseling,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that's another part of the thing that's probably preventing Black men from saying, "Hey, I need to talk to somebody," because of that mental piece.
Mm-hmm.
We've all heard that labels all by themselves can be detrimental in having somebody to step forward. Nobody wants to feel crazy.
Right.
But to say, hey, I need to sit down and just, vent, that's completely different. So when it comes to Black men, there's a lot of generational trauma that we
Mm-hmm.
that we deal with. And this goes all the way back, to slavery. Look at, keeping it in the present to the here and now. We have generational trauma. There
Absolutely.
are situations that you can have out with your wife in public without it turning into a potential arrest for you. I'm talking about just
Mm-hmm.
a typical you two having a disagreement. So
Mm-hmm.
there to be that awareness of the potential danger that having a disagreement.
Mm.
So to be that you're in, just for being you and just for having certain conversations. So most of us, we didn't come from two parent households.
Right.
We come from middle class communities. All of that stuff is generational trauma. And just to drive it home to show you how asinine things really are for us, we have arguments about who got the worst beatings growing up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Woo.
That's trauma. We have normalized. Man, my mama would throw anything. She threw a skillet at me, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Do you acknowledge that you are speaking on trauma.
Like
And
a badge of honor almost.
Right.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the things, or just the war stories of growing up in the hood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Man, no, I seen this and I saw that. Oh man, but I guess what? I had to walk through this neighborhood over a dead body.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that we carry with us. And the problem is because we never knew how to properly deal with it, we it manifested in some unhealthy ways. And some of us is the overindulging in alcohol and
Mm-hmm.
other mood altering substance. Some of us, it's women, right? And that's why many of us don't know how to treat Black women because of the trauma of growing up with the first woman that you were supposed to be loved by. If she wasn't present and she wasn't nurturing and she didn't demonstrate what love is supposed to look like, how is it possible now that you're 16 or 25 or 26 or 36 to hear a woman say that she loves you and you truly be able to appreciate it because your own mama never did that for you,
Right.
right? Told you
Right.
you wouldn't be anything and all of that stuff. And now you find yourself in a situation of a relationship where somebody's saying that they love you, but as soon as the two of you aren't seeing eye to eye, I don't need you. And to Black men, respect is what love is to a woman because we can't be told that we're loved if we're being disrespected constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And
Talk about the difference between the need for something that is psychological versus systematic. I know we were speaking briefly about that when we specifically when we were talking about young boys, and maybe trying to intervene a little earlier with um, with counseling. However, like you said, that may be something that's more systematic than psychological.
so the systematic piece is the ADHD, the overdiagnosing, the saying that we or alternative schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say tried to help little CJ, but he failed to be able to keep up or stay focused. So we're going to put him into an alternative school, which ultimately, a lot of times by default, leads to we've exhausted all avenues, and now we have to expel them and they have to go to a state home, and that's the systematic side of it.
Mm-hmm.
The psychological parts of it is this child saw something that perhaps they shouldn't have saw, and they didn't have the proper resources to sit down and deal with it, so now they begin to act out,
Right.
or because of what's happening in the home, that's psychological impact as well. And so they're two very different things, even though one can argue that because of the sociological and socioeconomics of it, that's the reason, from a systematic standpoint, that's by design. Just because you grew up in poverty or in a single parent household doesn't mean you should be subjected to abuse,
Right. Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a simple way for me to put that, if that provides any clarity.
It does. It does. But I mean, to add on to that, we would have to say that in certain instances that the systematic may have been so traumatic that it caused a need for the psychological.
I agree 100%. Yeah. So the two both can be true at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So psychological would also be someone experimenting with drugs,
Right.
right? And the weed gets laced or whatever, or they get slipped a Mickey.
Mm-hmm.
Psychological. Um,
Right. Okay.
Schizophrenia comes from those very things that we don't, talk about enough. This
Mm-hmm.
person, prior to that incident, didn't present any behaviors that was schizophrenic, but now,
Mm-hmm.
as a result of the use or that traumatic experience, now they, will spend the rest of their days with those same behavior patterns.
A lot of black men currently are in positions where they have to be caretakers, maybe of a sick or declining parent, and there's no one, they don't have a brother or a sister who can be dependent upon to help them with that particular parent. And that person is going through all types of, emotional setbacks. Um, would it, what type of counseling specific would work for that person?
That still be case by case,
Mm-hmm.
because when someone comes in, they may tell you that this is their chief issue that
Mm-hmm.
are coming in to be seen for. But then as you begin to peel that onion,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
the more you discover. So that may be what they perceive to be
That
the
could be like the breaking point.
correct, but
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you have all this underlying stuff that's sitting there from the course of their life.
Right.
Now, to give a coping skill that can help anybody, um, always encourage people to do an emotional check-in.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Check-in is simply you being aware of your emotions, but also being able to put a name to it.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I'm frustrated. Today, I feel overwhelmed.
Hmm.
Because if you already know that to be factual, then you can communicate that to your spouse, to your kids, to your co-workers or whatever, and people can be there to support you in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you just got to be aware of who you're sharing that information with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like a lot of times, and this goes back to the generational things that, we see we're wanting, some of us are wanting to try to break now, because I feel like sometimes we believe that we're supposed to automatically default to family and friends when it comes to having that supportive system. And if they're just as generationally, cursed as we are, sometimes us trying to pour into them is not going to, if anything, is going to trigger things that are worse, and then also trigger the shutdown. When you said the word suppression, it gave me goosebumps, because as a woman, and I know we're speaking on men, but as a woman, I did that for years. And like I said, it almost, broke me. But we've got to just start taking, like you said, I love that you said, like, self checking every day. How are you feeling? Put a name to it, write it down, get to journaling. There's nothing wrong with putting your emotions on paper, especially if you don't feel like that you have that support system right now. I highly recommend anybody going to the dollar store and getting a notebook, and just pouring those things out. Because again, I love that we are having this conversation, because I definitely feel like that is super necessary. So
So
I
what?
know one of the things that I'm sorry, CJ. One of the things that I would when I wanted you to even speak on was emotional intelligence.
mhm.
Um, that is something that I believe is one of the small things that could help us out. Just like one of the small things that you just said, as being able to put a name to how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Right. When you have that emotional intelligence piece, you're able to do that, and you may even be able to verbalize in depth, um, into some point, exactly, how and why you are feeling that way.
Mhm.
So before I speak to the emotional intelligence piece, I think it's only necessary to speak to the emotions.
Right.
People will tell you what they feel like, but they don't tell you what they feel.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So if you think about just casual conversations, argument, disagreements, somebody would say, I feel like you don't like me, or I
Yeah.
feel you think this or whatever. Well, if you say the word feeling, the challenge is to put an emotion to it. I feel
Mm-hmm.
aggravated. Now you got something to work off of.
Absolutely.
Disappointed. Well, what are you disappointed? Now you can have a conversation about. But if you spend all of this time talking about I feel like is not an emotion. So
Mm.
do is empower people with knowledge that long before we can get into the emotional intelligence, because the emotional intelligence is centered around emotions. But if I don't know what my emotions are and I'm uncomfortable with talking about emotions, then how am I really going to be able to demonstrate that properly?
Mm-hmm.
Facts.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Facts.
So, when it comes to the emotional intelligence of thing, you have it's five components to it.
Right.
So you have your self-regulation, you have social skills, you have
Self
the
awareness.
self-awareness, the empathy, piece to it, right? And what does that look like? What does that mean? So, and then from the 4 emotional intelligence pieces to this, it's the perceiving emotion, it's the reasoning of emotions, it's the understanding emotions and managing emotions. How do you deal with what you are experiencing? And a part of it requires us to challenge ourselves and not just say, okay, because I feel this way, I'm going to curse you out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the lack of emotional intelligence.
Right.
We have that all too often when 2 Black men disagree.
Right.
Neither one ever learned how to deal with the emotional intelligence piece of it. I'm mad, I feel disrespected, so now we got to fight, or I need to shoot you. Right. So all of that stuff right there, we have to get into the nuts and bolts of to really help brothers to understand that what does that look like and how can that preserve unnecessary stress on you as well as keep you out of harm's way, whether it's in your personal or professional work, life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so emotional intelligence is important because it requires us to govern our own behaviors. We can't just as we would say, snap or go off. Because
Right.
if you snap, you're gonna get fired, and if you go off, they got a place for you at some kind
Right.
Definitely got that.
I got another
Definitely got that.
question, but before I get into that, I wanted to allow you to answer Dame's questions. And it's first it says, how do you blend theology and psychology? I think the connection between both creates a major breakdown towards the stigma of mental health.
So I don't I don't integrate those two.
Yeah, wisely.
So I don't integrate them. So for situation awareness, I went to seminary, got the doctorate in theology when I was a young man, and later discovered that what I needed to be doing was putting myself in position to do just this, make a difference with people who were struggling with emotions and behavior. So unfortunately, Dame, I do agree with you, but I don't try to integrate those two.
Another question from Dame. I have a master's in developmental psychology, currently enrolled in a clinical mental health counseling program. Following this degree, would you suggest going PhD route for psychology counseling question, or what is it, psychology doctorate route? Also, where can I find your books?
Um, Thank you for the question. So there's 32 different subcategories for psychology, right? And if you have a master's degree in developmental psychology, then it would only be natural for you to probably pursue your doctorate in developmental psychology, depending on what you want to do with your with that degree in psychology. So because it's all going to be very different. I would always encourage people to question why you're going to get a doctorate. Is it going to improve your earning potential? If the answer is yes, then absolutely. Because once you get a doctorate degree in whatever, you are viewed as a subject matter expert. And all too often in our community, we have people just pursuing doctorate degrees to be called doctor. And it doesn't make a, a difference in their earning potential at all. So before those are questions you're going to have to ask yourself. But I never try to talk anybody away from school, because one of the things I left out, even in my introduction, heck, I'm currently in Cornell University School of Medicine right now for pursuing neurosurgeon. So my journey hasn't ended, but you just got
Nice.
to ask yourself why, right?
Yeah. The purpose got to be behind it, regardless of no matter what. I get that totally.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And so, and then my books, they are on Amazon, and they're also on my personal website, which is corneliusdjones.com. All of my stuff, social media, everything is in my name. So you can find it on there, Dame. So thanks for the question. And I hope I answered that because I don't try to talk people away from doing something that they want to do, but I always try to challenge people to ask why. Why am I really going to go that route if I don't have to?
You took my word from me, and that was challenge. And I was gonna my question was gonna be for those who are also looking to some not following your footsteps but go in the direction that you have went in. What would you say was the one of the bigger challenges that you faced getting to the point where you are now?
Um, Avoiding the imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
Oh my god!
understanding that every
I swear I just had this conversation with somebody.
yeah
Go ahead.
yeah understanding
Ooh.
that every space that I enter that I'm supposed to be there,
Mm-hmm.
and not allowing other people to try to devalue or say, well, you don't have enough experience, or you don't, whatever the case may be. So a part of the psychological piece of this too, you hear a lot of folks overusing the word, someone's a narcissist,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Lord.
So is, that's that grandiosity when somebody is blowing themselves up and all that stuff. Got that piece. But we live in a society now that if you have confidence that, and you have no problem with expressing that, people will call you a narcissist.
Ooh, come on.
You're supposed to believe in yourself, because if you don't
Come
believe in,
on.
how are you going to sell yourself to others? So just understanding that, for me, it was always knowing that any space that I entered, I was supposed to be there. When my first book became a bestseller, I had somebody reach out to me, and they, it was like, well, that's cool, but who finished the NBA playoffs number 28 last year, right? And I'm like, man, I don't know. And he's like, my point exactly. But see, I understood what he was trying to do from the,
Yeah.
he was trying to minimize, to promote something that he thought I was going to jump on board. I said, look, man, um, the mere fact that I broke a top 100 in any book selling category, I'm cool. You can't take that away from me.
That part.
Right.
Come on.
But that imposter syndrome is what prevents a lot of people from being their very best. And we have parents who have taught their kids that you can be anything you want to be, but their parents are liars and hypocrites because they've never applied themselves to be.
Ooh.
You stepping on big toes.
Ooh. I
Not
love
just
it.
the, but
I
I'm gonna tell
love
you
it.
what
You
though.
know
I
I
mean
love it.
that was I mean I know you ain't got nothing to do with it, but that was definitely a confirmation for me because
Yeah.
Hey.
I had that imposter syndrome conversation with my wife about something that's going on in my life right now, and yeah, that's all I needed to hear from now on.
Yeah, I do.
So
I
we
think the imposter syndrome and just the comparison. We can't deny that, you know what I'm saying? Social media got us comparing ourselves all day, every day. As a coach, I had to get out of that myself, stepping into my growth journey, becoming a coach, becoming, that motivator to say, you know what? And that's why I wear the word unapologetic like a badge of honor, because I am, because I don't have a problem with speaking my truth. I don't have a problem with standing on my truth. And I'm not finna go back and forth about my truth. How I speak, my purpose, my mission, everything I am unapologetic about, because I built this. I'm continuing to build that. And I think that that's the message, that we just want to get out, but it's going to require some good, bad, and ugly ass decisions, y'all, and especially to our men. Y'all know I rock with us till the wheels fall off. I am so supportive. And people be like, you work with women. I work with women for us to become our more empowering version of ourselves, so we can be that supportive system to the men, so they can become the more important, more empowering versions of themselves. There's a system to my madness, and also with their children, with young Black men. Unfortunately, here in my city, there's been 2 deaths in less than 24 hours by gunshot. And because we don't want to talk about these things, there is a 13-year-old who got arrested for strangling his mother to death here in my city.
wow.
13 years old. And the things are starting to come out about it. I won't speak on it too much here today, but the problem is the mental health, the mental awareness. We got to start talking about these things, and I just feel like that becoming more aware of who we want to be, having those conversations. I will say this, my recommendation and my personal opinion is, if you don't feel like that you need to go talk to a counselor just yet, there's nothing wrong with reaching out to somebody that could be just a standard mentor. Me, myself, personally, as a coach, I don't have the doctorates yet, but I am on that journey myself. But, I also am certified in mental health first aid, so I can make those determinations and be like, okay, it's cool for me to continue to converse with them versus let me try to get somebody else involved to that next level. But be okay with having those conversations with people that are truly wanting to be supportive to you, and that does not always mean it's your family and friends. Be open-minded enough to expand yourself so you can become the most empowering version of yourself.
And what does that support look like? And that's another
Right.
piece of
Mm-hmm.
conversation. If you're looking for someone to be agreeable with you, then that person isn't really going to help you. You
There you
need people.
go.
You need people who's going to confront you, call you out, and hold you accountable, and
Hold
say,
you accountable.
"Hey,
My
you,
favorite word.
you're so." And when we have this conversation, we also have to be honest and say, if you go to somebody and they're just agreeing with everything that you say,
Are they
that person,
really supporting you?
right? Because also be able to, it has to be measurable. When you first started coming here, here's what we were working on. You have graduated beyond that point. And what people also make the mistake of believing, therapists are not your friend. You're
Woo!
therapist. So if you are going to pay $90 or $150 or whatever they charge an hour just to go in there and be like, hey girl, hey boy, you know what I'm saying? Now, bro, hey, you are in search of a friend.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to pay your friends to be honest with you, or you have some bad friends. So one of the things that I would also say, and this goes back to something you said, Coach, was one of the worst things that any of us can do is to compete and compare
Mm-hmm.
ourselves to others, because you don't know what it took for somebody to get there,
Come
and
on.
if it's really at the level of where you think. I don't compare myself to anybody else. I don't look and sit back and say, oh, he's 44, I should be doing just as much as him.
Yeah.
Because I believe that the lane that I've created for myself, that I have exceeded in that lane to this point, and I'll continue to do so. But when we look at reality television, when we look at the entertainment industry, everybody is living their best life.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, things are falling apart.
Yep.
Show yourself that grace that's necessary and say, you know what, I don't have that doctorate yet,
Yeah.
but towards it. Because the thing about a degree is it only has the completion date, the day it was conferred. It doesn't have when you started it.
Yeah.
So and that's how you show yourself the grace and not put yourself under unnecessary pressure.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said something about showing yourself the grace, because before we salute off of here, I want you to tell us how important it is, because one thing that we will do is we will criticize ourselves as well as others. But what we don't do enough of, we've done better. We've come along, but what we don't do is celebrate the wins,
Mm-hmm.
Man, listen,
small and large.
Small
How
and
important is
large.
it for us to celebrate those wins?
you have to celebrate those milestones, because that milestone sets you up and prepares you for the greater success.
Absolutely.
Something where you can tell that we culturally aren't used to being celebrated. Tell someone that they have a nice shirt or nice shoes. The first thing they're going to do, because they're uncomfortable with compliments, is they're going to tell you where they got it from, how much it costs, and how long that they've had it. Right? Because
Deflect.
we weren't taught to just celebrate the fact that, okay, I do have a nice jacket, or whatever case, without all that added stuff. No matter how small it is, if you don't celebrate it, nobody else will.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
the world is already prepared to minimize anything that we do. So
Absolutely.
we will get comfortable with saying, no, you don't get a chance to try to downplay what I've done.
Yeah.
So celebrate yourself. Even if you got to celebrate, all alone, at least you are commemorating those things that you've done. Um,
Absolutely.
Because when your life is over with, the world will forget about you unless you've done something of great significance.
And they
But if,
still gonna forget.
yep, well, it'll be harder for them to forget when there's documented evidence that you've done something worthy,
Yeah, you
right?
know, but they'll remember you on your birthday and the death anniversary date, but them other 363 days of the year, you know, it's a loss. You know, they're not thinking about it. You know, I love that you told them to celebrate themselves. We got to get into that. A word that I hate that people use now, and I do not use it, is the word humble. If you look the word humble up in the dictionary, it tells yourself, and for that reason I am not humble. I do not call myself humble. People say it all the time, oh, humble yourself, it can get taken away from you. Why would you wish that on me? Because I'm trying to celebrate my wins, you know. So I love that you made that point. I'm not a humble person, and don't call me humble. I'm just not, because it's not. You know, you can, everybody's definition of it is different, but the textbook dictionary says minimizing, you know, your journey, minimizing what you've done, minimizing your accomplishments, and that's just something that I'm not going to do anymore.
Listen, I agree with you. With a one caveat to that would be that I often say humility prevents humiliation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as long as you have humility, you can never be humiliated. It's when we um, make ourselves bigger. It's when we constantly boast ourselves. So,
Right.
as an individual who believes in confidence, I preach it and tell people that you have to be able to be your own agent. You have to be your own spokesperson. Excuse me, I don't know why that was a
Mm-hmm.
struggle, but it's everything is about balance. Even
Absolutely.
with mental health, our day to day, everything is about finding that balance and what does that look like and how does that keep you where you need to be.
And then understanding that you're an individual and your journey is not going to be the same as the next person's journey. So
Correct.
I think that that's the, oh, this was a dope conversation. I appreciate it.
Indeed, indeed. I
Well,
appreciate you,
appreciate the
Dr. Jones, for joining us.
Please let
Before
us
we,
know where we can find you.
yeah,
listen, I'm everywhere. My next move will probably be Congress, but that's a different
Hey,
story.
come on. Come
So,
on, Doc.
so, so I'm focused. I'm focused on finishing this medical program because Cornell, man, let me tell you something. This is the first program that I've been in that has really challenged me from an academic standpoint, and I enjoy it. But that's the nerd side of me.
Good. Good. I love it.
ain't nothing
I
wrong with
mean,
that.
that purpose, that's strengthening that purpose. I love it.
Indeed.
Okay, let me finish on this right here because I think this is important. Most of us were raised to go to school, get a good job, um, go to school, get good grades, so we get a good job. But our community never focused on purpose. And since you said that, Coach, I certainly wanted to just touch on that temporarily.
Mhm.
So, purpose is extremely important. If not, you'll spend a whole lot of time, a whole lot of years pursuing and doing things that has nothing to do with your existence. But
Mm,
when you find your purpose, then you're always able to make a profit. But
Yes.
we conditioned to make the profit, we don't even pursue our purpose.
mm,
And there's the things that we are typically passionate about is our purpose. So that's
Yes.
why people jumping from job to job, career to career, because they may have been making good money, but they never operated in their purpose.
Absolutely. Come
that's
on.
awesome. That's
Go
awesome.
on, give him the clap, Sincere. Go on, give him the clap.
There it is, right there for him. You hear me? All right, man. We about to get out of here. Before we get out of here, man. CJ, man, that's what I tell you. I'm happy for you. I'm proud of you.
Appreciate
And
you.
you are and will continue to be a inspiration, even though you are about 2.5 years younger than me. But that's
Uh-uh.
all right. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate you,
Do
man.
you have
I'm
social
proud of what you're
media,
doing.
Doc? You got social media?
Yeah, I do. So my Facebook, Cornelius D. Jones. I have
IG
I have
Cornelius D. Jones.
Cornelius D. Jones. So
Mhm.
I have two of them. You can check either one of them out. I try to keep a balance on there by life perspective jokes, so you get a chance to see the whole personality.
Good.
Then I don't really mess with Twitter anymore since dude on there. My Instagram is Cornelius D. Jones. My website is Cornelius D. Jones. So as you can see, there's a theme with Cornelius D. Jones. Stuff at all.
Period. Branding, baby.
Yeah.
Also,
I love it.
you doing did I miss the thing already for the writers course?
The master class. I did the master's. I did a master's class yesterday.
Dang,
Um,
okay.
26 people in there for that. So once a year, I typically do coach for situations where I do a master's class where I teach people who are aspiring authors or who, are independent authors on how to create a good product. I just think that at this point, with over 250,000 copies sold and, 5 bestsellers and 2 number one new releases, that I have proven myself in the industry to where I can conduct master classes. And that's,
Absolutely.
again, is avoiding that imposter syndrome. Like, hey, I'm good.
Hey, that's that inner confidence. That
Yeah,
inner confidence aligned with that purpose. Hey, that's a win-win to me. I love it.
yeah, yeah,
That's
I'll
what's
definitely
up.
be
That's what's
following.
up.
yeah.
All
But
right,
thanks.
man. We appreciate you coming on. I definitely appreciate you coming on.
Me too.
And as it usually goes, I am sincere. That is Coach, and that is CJ. And we will holler at y'all on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.